Thanks so much. So whenever I start a project, the first question I ask is, are we solving a real problem? And with Aurora, our mission was, and still is, to help people become more sustainable through the decisions they make every day and build an international community of like-minded individuals. So of course we were solving a real problem. We're in a freaking climate crisis, so it's obviously real. But as anyone who's built a product will know, it is never as simple as it seems. So let's unpack two key words in this mission: sustainable and international. These proved to be the tricky parts for us. So let's start a little bit with the product, Aurora Sustainability. When a user comes onto our platform, they start off with a little quiz to try and understand some of the aspects of their lifestyle and then calculate their carbon footprint accordingly. Easy, right? We'll just ask the basics, like how do they travel? How much electricity do they use? And what do they eat? We thought so too, and we were wrong. Every country has a significantly different electrical grid, heating, fuel types, and restrictions on what food can be grown locally. In the US, this is even different at a state level. As we found out, all 50 of them. So if we really wanted to help people become more sustainable, we needed to give them as accurate a footprint as possible. Not only that, we needed to give them customized content that would guide them in making changes. It's no good telling Norwegians how to shop local South African brands. And so the Aurora localization journey began. And today, I'm going to tell you what I learned along this very bumpy road. So let's start with lesson 1. Leverage markets where you already have a presence. In other words, Americans are super competitive. So if you've successfully entered one market, which Aurora had when we launched in the US, why not use that credibility and curiosity in capturing a new market? So what we did in the US, as we rolled out into each state, we realized that these states are very competitive with one another. And so what we found was if we showed an ad to people in another state, for instance, New York, and we showed them the average Texan score, they would be hugely motivated to find out their own score. In fact, this was our best performing ad ever. Lesson 2. Localization is about a lot more than translation. In other words, Norwegians are complicated. So there's always more than you think to localization. I put my team through a lot. We launched in China and Norway, and I'm not sure if they will ever forgive me. But it seemed simple at first. We would just translate the platform and some articles, and we'd be good to go. Once we scratched beyond the surface, we realized that sustainability is complicated in Norway. Yes, it is one of the most forward-thinking countries in the world, but it is also one of the largest oil producers. We had to understand that there was a sense of pessimism around how much impact people could really make and address the topic in our content and community. And so we did. We spoke about this openly, the blame game of the climate crisis. The other aspect is that we couldn't just suggest that people eat locally grown food. That's easy in South Africa. But there are only a few months a year, as you guys would know, when growing anything in Norway is possible. So we did articles and videos about what fresh food is in season when and how to buy local as much as possible. Lesson 3. Networking and sales cultures are different. In other words, nobody in Norway wanted to add me on LinkedIn. So after Aurora's initial success in the consumer market, we realized that we could help companies, organizations, and cities to actually become more sustainable through their networks and people. We did market research and early testing with companies in our networks. We figured out what sorts of decisions or projects are usually managed. And we found that the key people in these companies were heads of marketing, heads of sustainability, and heads of innovation. So we needed to talk to these people. And I went where you find professionals, LinkedIn. I started adding people as connections in these positions so that I could then add them to our page and grow our reach. As we had a presence in Norway, the US, and South Africa at the time, I added people from all three countries. Except one group would not accept my invitations, Norwegians. So once again, I tried to understand. It turns out that accepting someone you don't know on LinkedIn is not the way things are done in Norway. I was given this book and told to do some homework. Lesson 4. Some things are universal, no matter where you launch. In other words, haters are going to hate everywhere. For us, these haters were climate change deniers, and unfortunately, they are everywhere. We thought we'd make a carbon footprint tangible. So we made this ad about how many kilograms of CO2 equals one coffee. This was not well received. We were accused of taking away jobs. We were also told that carbon footprint is a sham many, many times. But then something great happened. Our community got passionate and started responding to these climate deniers. We started important conversations and made people realize the impact that individuals really can make. And now for lesson 5. It's worth it. In other words, localization and international growth are tough, but you should do them anyway. So, as we've spoken through all of this, we know it's not an easy journey, but we were very intentional about specific things that we use to get into these different markets. For instance, we moved our website over to Webflow for scalability. We used tools like Geo-Targetly to show the right websites to the right people. We tracked everything using data products like BigQuery and Data Studio to constantly monitor what was working where and made sure that our ads and content aligned with this. So we could see what kind of content at all times was working in which countries and then create similar content. We could also see which segments we were targeting correctly in which countries, and it was absolutely fascinating to see the differences and similarities. So tools were something that we did right, but we also did a lot of things wrong. And even with all this tech to make our lives significantly easier, we made mistakes, but we learned along the way. It wasn't easy, but taking our products to different places taught us more than we'd ever imagined. Humans aren't simple, and that's kind of great.